Hey guys, I decided to make a video about Terran versus Protoss Sim City. So already at the screen, there is like 70 to 80% knowledge you need to have versus Protoss to build your Sim Cities correctly. So notice how this Marine can go through every of those spots, but Zealot cannot go through any of them. Yeah. So based on that, we can create everything we need. So why this does this happen? Like, so let's look at this picture. As you can see, on the right side of the CC, we have number 5, and on the left side of the barracks, we have number 16. And what this means is that for the CC to fill the whole square on the right side, it lacks 5 pixels, and for barracks, it lacks 16 pixels. So now, if you look at the marine statistics, it says that marine's width is 17, while zealot's width is 23. So when you add 16 to 5, you have 21, which means that the unit that is 21 or less pixels in width can go through, but anything that is above it cannot go through it. So this is the explanation of how this works. So pretty much all you have to remember is exactly this setup, that the factory has to be on the right side of the depot has to be on the right side of the barracks, and barracks has to be on the right side of the CC. So let's look at some more examples to clarify everything. So we have this setup with bunker, depot, bunker. And look how marine can go through here, zealot as well, but they cannot go through here. And same with marine, they cannot do it. Dark Templar cannot go through any of them. This is exactly the same situation as before. So because bunker on its top has 8 pixels and supply on its bottom has only 5, if you add them together you have like 8 plus 5, which is 13, and none of those units have 13 or less height, which means none of the units can go through. But if you take 15 from the bottom of the bunker and 10 from the top of the supply, you have 25, and suddenly Marine and Zalot can go through, but their Templar is 26, so he cannot go through. This is a mistake that people often do, where they make this supply on the left side of the barracks and then Zalot can go through, which is happening because of if you add 16 on the left side of the racks with 9 from the right side of the supply, you have 25, which is greater than Zalot's width, so he can go through. And here is the last example which makes people confused that I can think of, which is if you connect the barrack with supply with the corners, and the supply is put like that, then Zealot cannot go through. But this side, this is also on the right side. Marine can go through, but Zealot also can go through. And this is happening because when you put units touching with the corners, you should get the values that are the biggest from the, like in this case, from the bottom and the right side. And for the barracks, from the bottom, it's 15. And for the supply, it's 10. So it's 25 together, which means the width of the Zealot is lower than the amount of pixels there are between those buildings. It is also worth noting that two depots next to each other also create pretty good wall against Zealots. And if you have set up like that, then Marines can freely walk between those depots, but Zealots cannot. If you put your depots vertically though, then no Zealot or Marine can go through them. So let's look at the practical examples. We have mainly 4 ways of dealing with Zealots early game. So one of them is to go for a wall. This obviously stops Zealots completely from reaching our base, so this is very good in case of like 2-gate proxy, 1-gate proxy, and stuff like that, generally versus early aggression. But this is very bad versus 12 nicks, because to attack 12 nicks now, if we would like to push it with SCVs, vultures and SCVs, we have to lift off our barracks, which makes us unable to produce from these barracks. So that's its cons. The second way of building is that we build near the ramp. And this is actually my favorite, and the goal of this is that when Zealot will approach to harass our base and the factory will be still in production and there will be SCV running around the factory, our marines can attack the Zealots and quickly hide between this barracks and supply. And there will be never a moment where you cannot basically put any damage on the Zealot, because Zealot to reach us will have to go around, and then we can move like that, and Zealot again has to go around, and we can dance with it like that. So attacking the SCV will always cause Zealot to take damage because we will be harassing the Zealot. The third way is to... This is pretty good on some maps and some positions when you go for gasless expansion versus Protoss. You can make SimCity like that in your NAT, and now Protoss should be unable to reach your base without going like into mineral line or around it. This is pretty powerful, but this requires some knowledge already and some preparation, because obviously you will be putting your supply and barracks first, so only then you will drop your CC, and you have to know where to put your buildings pretty well. Unlike in this case, because it doesn't matter whether you put depot here or barracks here. So this is much harder, and you have to be more knowledgeable to pull it off well. And the last method is to put your barracks next to your CC, ideally with people like that. On some maps it's pretty good, but on some maps it's actually not too good. So for example, on Radeon I don't like that, because I like to have my factories near my ramp. So even if I put my factory here, this is already kind of a distance from my barracks to the factory, and the Zealot has much more room to jump between the Marines and the factory and the SCV which is building the factory. Because for example, if we have factory here, now the Zealot can chase us to the very end, because we cannot fight him, so we have to go between barracks and depot, and then Zealot can come back in any moment and attack our SCV along with the probe usually. So this is good on any map where the ramp will be near this setup, but this is actually a little bit too far if you build it like that. But if you are okay with building it like that, I mean the factory, then it's completely fine, and this is actually pretty good, because then you save money by not going to your ramp, because you don't have to travel that far to put your buildings with Destiny. So it's a little bit more economical, but this is already like some kind of min-maxing. This is not that important. So this is preference. This is good on some positions, while this is good almost every time. And this is the biggest no-brainer, and I usually go for exactly that. So let's look at another maps and more examples of those in cities. Let's look at those maps that I know are causing troubles to people. So for example, on bottom right, Metropolis, you can do something like that. And now the Zealot, to get to the Marine, have to travel all the way here. And this is good because now you can make more Marines and just fight the Zealot, and in need of rushing the 12 next, you just make a Vulture and it nicely goes like that. So this is pretty good setup on this position. Here is another pretty good example of this on this position. Zealot cannot go through, but Marines actually can go out, which is pretty good in case of walls, because very often the situation with walls is that Dragoon will be faster in your base than your tank will be out. So now the Goon can harass this position, but if you have such a wall, you can just add more Marines and actually stand right here, and then the Goon cannot come in because you just protect the ramp. And also you can go out in case you need to. So walls like that are pretty good, but unfortunately on this position, it is not that practical, because then for the rest of the game your units will have to go around. So only like not from those factories if you put any there. But it's interesting and good to keep in mind, because this will apply in more maps, not only to this one. So it's just worth remembering this is possible to do. In the bottom right, you can do something like that, where you have this depot initially, which is very good because then your STVs spawn near the minerals, and you just simply add barracks on the left side, and Zealots cannot reach this marine, and it is nicely protecting this factory. In the top left, you can do setup like that. This barracks could be even more farther towards the top, and you have the same situation. Zealot cannot reach the marine, but you can easily protect your factory. So, yeah. And I like to do something like that instead of near the ramp, because here on Metropolis, on all those positions, you need place for factories. So that's why I don't like to put deeper right here. And the bottom left, you have something like that, where you have exactly the same situation. Zealot cannot go through those buildings, but Marine can. You actually have two spots where Marine can go through. This is pretty good. Of course, this also protects the factory nicely if you put it like that, and then you can add another one right. Also on this position, there is pretty good spot for a nice Sim City in the natural, where you put your buildings like that, and now Zealot to reach the Marine has to go all the way around, but of course, you already have STVs there, so by putting Marine like that, Zealot will always be damaged, and you can drill your STVs towards the Zealot, and it's pretty good defense. Also, then you add bunker here later on and you are completely fine. On the right side of Nator, I like such setup where I have those three gaps to go through. Zealot of course cannot go through any of them. And this is actually pretty strong. On this position I think it's pretty hard to rush Terran who is microing properly. On the bottom side I like to do something like that. I learn a hard way to never put factory here because then if you are getting crushed by the goons, this is actually problematic, I think. So it's much better to have it like that, and then your tank will go towards the right side there. The tank will be kind of trapped between those minerals and factory. So this is my preferred setup here. And on the top, I like to do something like that, where I have this gap, Zealot cannot go through, and if there are more Zealots, because he's going like 2 gate procs or something like that, there are actually like pretty nice spots for bunker right here, or you can add another supply right here, making a gap, or even here with factory, same thing. You will also have additional gap there. So this position is also pretty nice for defending. Let's talk about our favorite fighting spirit next. So in the top right, you can have SimCity like that, but the problem with this is that although Zealot cannot go through here, it can still go through here. Some people use that and they like it. I personally don't like it that much, but well, why not? You can use it. Another interesting thing about this position is that this seems completely logical, but actually doesn't work, because Zealot can still go through here. And this is something that you cannot know when you are playing certain maps. You actually have to learn it. And this will be a theme for many maps, that some interesting setups will be allowed or not allowed by the map terrain. So the correct way of doing well on this position is to do it like that. Depot here, and then another one here. And this way you can go through with Marines, but Zealot cannot go through. You can also feed a turret here. On the bottom right of Fighting Spirit, you can do something like that. On this position, even Marine cannot go out. But if I remember correctly, this is not linked tight. So to make it link tight, which is out of scope of this video, but just because we are already here, to do something like that. So as you can see, Factory also can be used for walling. And fighting, we have the same situation right here on bottom left. We can also put a machine shop here, and this works pretty nicely. Both units cannot go out, but this is a wall, so we can use it. This is also on bottom left, and this is actually one of my favorite setups I have that one, because look, the Zealot cannot go to the Marine, so this is super good. And Marine can go through any of those holes, except between Factor and the barracks. But this is very good for defending any kind of proxy gates as well, because Zealots really have to go a long way, and then you can drill right here from the minerals to gas. In the top left, setup like that is pretty nice, because this is the same story. Zealot to come to the Marine has to go through the mineral line, and you put bunker like that, you can later on put your barracks here, and you have this nice setup versus practically everything. So of course we are not gonna go through every map, but I wanted to present you some map specific and general ideas. So this is the last one. Very often you will be able to this so-called Mickey Mouse wall, because these are supposed to be ears and this is head with barracks. You can put it like that, and now of course Zealot cannot go through it, and Marine as well cannot go through it. But if you put your barracks like that, then you have the same effect for the Zealot. So the Zealot still cannot go through, but Marine actually can go out, which might be useful. Sometimes you can consider like putting her buildings a little bit to the side like there, and you have different result. Okay, I think that's it for today. Remember that you can join my Discord and submit your replay for analysis. I'll be certainly doing more of those, so you can use this occasion. And also, I'm running coaching services, so if you'd like to work with me, I will gladly do so. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.